Hi, I'm Steve G. Jones, clinical hypnotherapist, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself before we get started. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Florida, a master's degree in education from Armstrong Atlantic State University, and a doctorate in education from Georgia Southern University. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, a member of both the American Board of Hypnotherapy and the National Guild of Hypnotists, and I'm president of the American Alliance of Hypnotists. I'm the director of the Steve G. Jones School of Clinical Hypnotherapy. I also serve on the board of directors of the American Lung Association in Los Angeles. I have over 2 decades of experience in hypnotherapy, and I still maintain a busy practice and teaching schedule because I see clients and teach classes worldwide. My client base consists mainly of people who want to lose weight, stop smoking, or gain confidence. Other clients include sales teams interested in boosting motivation and increasing income. Also, singles looking for love, insomniacs desiring proper sleep, and actors desiring more confidence for their next audition. When I travel to see clients and teach hypnotherapy certification classes around the world, I visit such places as Tokyo, Japan, Barcelona, Spain, Paris, France, London, England, Montreal, Canada, Los Angeles, California, and New York, just to name a few. By the way, since you have an interest in hypnosis, perhaps you would be interested in becoming a certified clinical hypnotherapist. It's very easy to do. All you have to do is go to my website, betterlivingwithhypnosis.com, and click on Hypnosis Classes at the top. You can either train in person or online. After your training, you'll be added to our worldwide directory of certified clinical hypnotherapists, and you'll receive a certificate. I was fortunate for many years to have my office in Beverly Hills, California, where I worked with such wonderful people as Tom Mankiewicz, the writer of Superman, Geraldine Saunders, the writer of The Love Boat, and many other celebrities. I have been interviewed on CNN, Fox News, and appeared on True TV, in addition to having my own hypnosis TV show. With my over 20 years of experience, I'm happy to share with you techniques that I've both developed and learned, which can help you improve your life. I encourage you to visit my website, betterlivingwithhypnosis.com. There you will find my life's work, 22 books on hypnotherapy, over 3,000 hypnosis recordings available as downloadable MP3s or CDs, and these recordings will program your mind to achieve goals in such areas as weight loss, motivation, and stopping smoking. I also have audiobooks, such as this one, where I'm talking with you and sharing with you in a very dynamic way techniques that you can use to improve your life and the way you do things. The reason I'm telling you all of this is not to impress you, but to impress upon you that I, your teacher, am very capable and I know what I'm talking about. I'm also very happy for the opportunity to share this information with you, so rest assured that you're in good hands, and let's have some fun as we now expand your knowledge. I wish you well in all of your endeavors, and please be sure to visit my website, betterlivingwithhypnosis.com. Welcome to the program on Deep Zen Meditation, and I'd like to start with some information on Shakyamuni Buddha. Now, in ancient times in India, he was the son of a very powerful man, but he was not really happy with the way he was living. He had a very wonderful life, everything was taken care of, but he wasn't happy with that. So he started off on a journey, and the journey was designed to help him get in touch with himself. And along his journey, he was involved in very scholarly study, but at the end of that, he was still not really able to answer the question which was burning in his mind, which is, what is life and death all about? That was the question he set out to answer. So, whereas he had been fasting and pursuing things intellectually and not really treating himself well overall, he decided to stop that. He decided that the only way for him to get to the answer of this question is to ask himself. So at that point, he had become part of a group of other people who were also of a similar disposition. They were also interested in getting to the root of what is the meaning of life and so forth. So they were really treating themselves in an almost neglectful way, doing without some of the more elaborate things in life and just paying attention to the fundamentals. So when he changed his mind, when he said, wait a minute, this isn't working, whereas he had been fasting, he stopped that and he drank a bowl of milk. And this really shocked the people around him because that was a no-no. And he decided that he was going to look inside himself from that point on. So from that point, as the story goes, he spent the next 6 years just sitting motionless, looking within, searching his own mind and his own feelings. And he got better at it. He got better at meditating. He got better at looking within. And he felt that he was on the right track. But he had to almost force himself, because this took a lot of concentration. He had to constantly remind himself to stay with it, to keep doing what he was doing, to keep meditating, to stay focused. Now, this doesn't mean that he just sat there, by the way, for 6 years and didn't do anything else. The main thing that he did was sitting there, though. And when he had time, he would devote himself to sitting there, looking within. One day, it got to him. He had had almost enough. He told himself that he was going to sit down there and keep sitting there until he either figured it all out or until he died. So he got really focused and really started concentrating on his question and blocked out everything else. And what happened was that he and the question were no longer two separate entities. He had united with the question. He had become the question. And as the story goes, on the morning of the 8th day of December, as he was sitting there deeply meditating, he saw the planet Venus, and it was all he could see in the sky. It was all by itself. And at that moment, he became the planet Venus. The planet Venus is also called the morning star, by the way. He became the morning star. Not only that, he became the whole universe. Not only was he one with the question and one with the star, or the planet Venus, but he was at one with the entire universe. And so, this man, whose name was Siddhartha Gautama Shakyamuni, finally had the answer to his question. And for the first time, he was able to see reality. And it was from that moment on that people began to refer to him as Buddha. And Buddha means the one who woke up. And so, for the rest of his life, and he lived about 50 more years, he set out to tell people and demonstrate to people how they could wake up by doing the same thing that he had done, making the same discovery. So people started sitting and meditating because Buddha had taught them to do that, what it was like to wake up. They knew who they were. They knew what life and death were all about. They had an understanding. And even after Buddha crossed over into spirit, those who followed his path that he laid out continued to make the same discovery. But before Buddha crossed over into spirit, he found someone he could trust, someone he believed could really understand what he was trying to say and teach others in the same way that he had taught them. And this man's name was Mahakashyapa. And then Mahakashyapa then trained somebody else that he felt was trustworthy. And so the lineage began. And this continued in India for 28 generations until one of the successors, Bodhidharma, went to China. And the teachings then stayed in China for 6 generations, then to Korea, then other parts of Asia, eventually to Japan. And having been to Japan, I can tell you the Buddhist temples there are absolutely amazing. And what's interesting is that the knowledge that was passed on had to be gained by each individual from the individual. The teacher could be there to facilitate learning, but it really had to come from within the individual. So it wasn't a correspondence course in which they learned how to do it secondhand. And it wasn't even something in which the teacher said, okay, here's what we're doing, just do this. It was a very individual path. The teacher could facilitate it to a certain point, but the individual had to look inside. So when there was this succession of Buddhism being passed down from generation to generation, being entrusted to someone else each time, that person had a tremendous responsibility and had to be well qualified to look inside, because that person had to lead others to the same realization. And when I say lead, they really almost didn't lead at all. They pointed. I think that's a better description. They pointed the way, then the individual had to find the way within themselves. So we have an unbroken line of facilitators. And at this point, we have over 80 generations. Started in India, went to China, other parts of Asia, went to Japan eventually, and now, fortunately, has reached the Western world. So now, as it's in the Western world, and in particular in America, where I live, we have access to amazing information, to information that can help us look within. So rather than looking at it as something that's foreign or something that's just over there, anyone, anywhere in the world can look at it as something that belongs to them. No matter where you live, no matter who you are, it is something that you have every right to. It's not something that's owned by India or China or Japan or America or any country. It's something that every individual has a right to. Now, when Shakyamuni first discovered enlightenment and felt it firsthand, he thought it was wonderful, amazing, miraculous. But he also realized that we tend to create challenges for ourselves because we have a way that we're accustomed to thinking. We have the old way of doing things. So when we become enlightened, sometimes it gets a little tainted by our old way of doing things. This becomes a challenge. Another challenge is sometimes we want to fit this into a box. We want to see where it's going to fit in our lives. Where is this meditation going to fit in? Where is this knowledge going to fit in? And so we look at it in a very logical way, and it doesn't conform to logic. So we have some challenges. That's the challenge. And by the way, I like to call problems challenges whenever possible because that means they're surmountable. So a problem is something that seems like a big mountain that might be really difficult to climb. A challenge sounds like the same mountain, but now the challenge is on. Okay, you're challenging me to climb it. I'm going to climb it. So the way to climb this mountain, the solution to the problem, as some people would say, is sitting. That's what Buddha discovered, that sitting was the solution. And that, in this program, is what I want to introduce you to. All right, you've got a lot of information in your mind now, a lot of information that's come to you, a lot of information you've heard from me. There's a lot going on in your mind. Why don't we take a moment now, make sure you're not driving during this. If you're driving, don't listen to this part, do this part later. But if you're not driving, what I want you to do is close your eyes and let all those thoughts come to you, all those thoughts that are floating around in your head, let them come to you now. And I want you to start seeing them become organized. And I want you to start seeing them happening in your life. I want you to see them playing themselves out in your life somehow. All these ideas you have, I want you to find a place for them in your mind, whether in terms of a plan, or in terms of changing something about yourself immediately, or in terms of, it could even be a vacation you're thinking of taking. But those ideas that are coming to you now as a result of listening to this material, what I want you to do with them right now, I don't want you to write anything right now. I don't want you to overthink anything. I just want you to close your eyes as long as you're not driving. I want you to close your eyes. And as I'm silent, just use your imagination and let your imagination run wild. See where these ideas will take you. Let these ideas float around in your mind as I'm silent and really let them play out. Just let them go wild in your mind. See where they take you. As I'm silent, do this now. right? Did you enjoy that? Now, probably what happened is initially when you closed your eyes, you thought of a bunch of random thoughts and they didn't make any sense. Maybe some things were coming in that really didn't fit there. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see all kinds of interesting images that don't have anything to do with what I'm talking about or listening to. But hopefully, after a little while, those images kind of settled down and meaningful images started to show up. Like, aha, that business idea I had, or that vacation I had, or that person I need to tell something to, or something started to develop, or maybe a series of things. When you let your imagination run wild, you often come up with ideas that you will not access if you're beating your head against the wall, if you're trying to figure something out. That's not as effective usually as just letting your mind run wild, because eventually your mind is going to settle down and is going to start giving you information that you can actually use. So I hope you use this exercise not only in this program, but outside of it as well. I want to make sure that you're with me, that you're paying attention and that you're learning something. So what I want you to do right now is, if you're driving and you can pull over, go ahead and do that. If you're not driving, then you can definitely do this. You can take out a piece of paper and you can write down 5 things that you've learned so far from what I've said. 5 things that resonated with you. Now, I want you to keep in mind, they don't even have to be 5 things that I said. Maybe you got some good ideas from what I said. Maybe I said something and your brain took it and blew it up a million times and came up with all kinds of wonderful, amazing possibilities based on what I said. If that's the case, then feel free to write that down. I just want you to write down 5 things, whether they came from me or they're just thoughts that came in your head. 5 things that have come to you so far, either from me saying them or from you thinking them, as a result of listening to this program so far. So as I'm silent, I'm going to give you ample time now. I want you to write down 5 things, 5 thoughts that you have as a result of listening to this program so far. Do this now. Okay, do you have your 5 things? If not, go ahead and finish them up. 5 things, write them down. So I'm going to move forward now. Let's take those 5 things that you have written down, and I want you to elaborate on them. For example, if you have an insight number 1, that's I should change blank about myself, whatever it may be, I want you to elaborate on that. Whatever you've written down for point number 1, something that's come to you during listening to this program, I want you to elaborate on that now as I'm silent. Good. And now I want you to take point number 2 and elaborate on that. What was the second point that you wrote down, and how can you enhance this idea? I want you to make it real for yourself, because I want you to have, after you finish this program, something you can use. So on point number 2, elaborate on it. Consider what you wrote down as point number 2, the foundation. Now build a house on it. Go ahead and write down something now as I'm silent. Good. Now you're getting some momentum. Now for point 3. Point number 3 that you wrote down, something that came to you as you listened to this program. I want you to elaborate on point number 3 as I'm silent. Good. Now take point number 4, the fourth point that you wrote down, something that came to you while you're listening to this program. I want you to elaborate on point number 4 as I'm silent. Great. Last but not least, point number 5. Take point number 5 and elaborate on it as I'm silent. Good. So now you have something that you can take with you after this program. You have those 5 points that you elaborated on, and you can use them after this program's over. So let's continue on with the information now.